I've had many interests over the many years I've been working as a clinical pharmacologist, and I think that being a clinical pharmacologist, I've been very lucky to be able to indulge those interests, and clinical pharmacology does bring a whole range of interests together, so I've been very fortunate. Of course, there's clinical pharmacology itself, which is a rewarding career on its own without anything else. There's the interest in how drugs are discovered, how they work, how they produce beneficial and harmful effects, how to use them properly. Everything about medicines is, for me, absolutely fascinating. And so the aspects of that I feel have been most fruitful from my point of view are first the early research that I did into cardiac glycosides, specifically digoxin, and devising dosage regimens describing how best to use that particular drug. Digoxin isn't used very much nowadays, but when I look at the recommendations for how to use it, they are all based on methods that I developed early in my research career. So I think that was very, very fruitful and very rewarding to have been able to influence therapeutic practice in that way. Then later on, when I became interested in mechanisms, physiological mechanisms of cation transport, a lot of the work we did contributed to understanding how adaptive responses to medicines occur. This was an interest of my erstwhile boss, David Grahame-Smith, who was Professor of Clinical Pharmacology in Oxford for nearly 30 years. And one of his major interests was in how systems in the body respond to interference by medicines, and how they, as it were, fight back, how they adapt to the insults that medicines introduce, and how they regulate themselves in order to oppose those effects that medicines have. And the whole business of adaptive responses is an interesting biology in itself, and I was able to contribute to that in relation, again, to the cardiac glycosides, to digoxin, and how the sodium-potassium ATPase is capable of regulating its activity. And that led to studies of the physiology of that system and how it adapts. So that was, I think, very fruitful and interesting, and it shed light on certain diseases such as renal failure and hypertension, which have abnormalities of cation transport associated with them. Then latterly, I have been interested in adverse drug reactions, or side effects of drugs as they're commonly called. This was something that I became interested in because I became the editor of a major textbook in the field, which is called Myler's Side Effects of Drugs.